Hi everyone, my name is Davide Valeriani. I'm a postdoc at Massachusetts IEEE and Harvard Medical School in Boston. And today I would like to talk about collaborative brain-computer interfaces and why these technologies are important for the development of BCIs and why also unified terminology is a key component here. So let me share my screen with the presentation. I will start first by defining what is a collaborative brain-computer interface. As you have heard in the previous talks, a BCI generally works with the brain signals from a single person and tries to decode some sort of measure there, for example, to make a decision or to issue a command to an external device. Now, the key component of collaborative BCIs is that the output of the BCI depends on the brain activity of multiple people. So the idea of collaborative BCIs is really integrating neural data from multiple brains in different ways that will be clear in a second. And these collaborative BCIs have been introduced quite recently. Actually, the first abstract was in 2011. And they've been focused mainly on simple perceptual tasks. The key idea of collaborative BCI, so the reason why they have been introduced is because, as you know, when we record neural data from EEG or any non-invasive techniques, our signal-to-noise ratio is not that great, and that's why the accuracy of BCIs is generally less than 100%. So collaborative BCIs, by aggregating brain activity from multiple people, what they do is actually rejecting this noise by averaging across brains rather than across trials. And averaging across trials is a typical technique used in BCIs to make more accurate predictions and decoding. And this is exactly what was shown in 2012 in one of the first studies in which Eckstein and colleagues used a simple face and car perceptual task in which users were asked to discriminate. You see here on the bottom right, they were asked to look at an image and decide whether a picture of a face or a car was presented. If we integrate the brain activity from 7 or more people, we can actually have the coding accuracy of a collaborative BCI that is as good or even better than behavioral performance. So meaning one person, non-BCI user, clicking a button to report its own decision. Now, this may trigger you a question saying why do we need collaborative BCIs at all? Can't we just have behavioral performance here? Why are they competitive at all if we need 7 brains, the activity from 7 brains, to be able to achieve the performance exactly of one person without any technology? Let me also briefly touch on why it is important to have a unified terminology here. Now, even though the field is quite recent, so it was born in the last decade mainly, we already have at least 9 possible ways to define these systems. So in the very early stages, these systems were called hyperscanning. And hyperscanning, what it means is really collecting neural data from multiple people at the same time. And then we also have different components in which BCIs are generally single person, but when we use brain activity from multiple people, we could have multi-mind or multi-brain or multi-user BCIs, just to cover this fact that the brain activity is really the brain activity of multiple people, not only one. If we instead move more towards the application of these BCIs on how different users or different participants interact with each other to control these BCIs, then we have more collaborative or cooperative or competitive BCIs. For example, in a video game, if you are 2 people that need to collaborate to achieve a certain goal, then you would talk about collaborative or cooperative BCI. If you instead play Pong, for example, with your BCI and you are competing to win in that game, you would call that competitive BCI. And also there are other BCIs like passive and hybrid BCIs that have some components of collaborative and multi-mind BCIs here. So we really need to understand that different research groups or different areas of research within the collaborative BCI domain really call these technologies in different ways. And that's why unified terminology here is important, because we want to be able to capture all the progress that has been done in the field, and also to move further research in the area and to better define what is, for example, the difference between a collaborative and a competitive BCI. Now, in practical terms, how do we implement a collaborative BCI? So where does the integration happen? So integration of multiple brain signals from multiple people could happen at 4 different levels. So the first one is signal level, and this is represented here at the very bottom. So where we basically record the brain activity from multiple people that are doing, for example, a specific task, and then we average those across people. This is exactly the signal processing technique I was talking about before. So instead of averaging across trials within the same person, we average across people to increase our signal-to-noise ratio. Instead, we could have also a feature fusion, in which we extract features from each individual brain activity, and then we average or integrate or fuse these features across people. We could also have multiple fully developed BCIs or single-user BCIs, in which every person has a BCI that records the brain signal and classify or makes a decision or a decoding process out there. And then we integrated these decisions across people to make a collaborative BCI, where the output really depends on the output of 3, in this case, individual BCIs. We also have a 4th level, which is called application fusion, in which instead we have another application or another, for example, machine learning classifier that integrates the output of these individual BCIs at an application level. And this could vary across different applications. And I put here like a reference of a survey we did for a book chapter in the BCI handbook a couple of years ago that really covers all of these in more detail. Now, let me move towards like a more practical example on how we can use collaborative BCIs in a real domain. So in the past 7 years, I've been developing and validating this framework of collaborative BCIs for enhancing and improving group decision making. So here, instead of focusing on, like detecting faces or cars, or really improving individual performance with a collaborative BCI, I would argue that really like collaborative BCIs are not really competitive for making something we are happy to do alone or we are able to do alone in a group, but instead they could be used to increase the performance of groups or in tasks where we usually act in groups, for example, in critical decision making. And the idea behind this framework is that you have multiple people performing the same task, and they see an image, for example, and then they have to make a decision, and they report this decision with a mouse click, yes or no, binary decision to start with. Each of these person is then equipped with a BCI that uses their brain activity to establish or estimate how confident they are in this decision. Okay, so the more confident they are, the more likely their decision is to be correct. If we know this, then on a single decision, on every single decision, we can really understand which person or which people in the group are the most trustworthy one, and so having them impact the group decision to a bigger level. So the confidence here is really a weight that we apply to the responses of each person, and then that person would really influence the group decision more or less depending on what their brain signals are telling us about their confidence in that decision. Now, how does this work? So this is a perfect example of integration at the decision level. Each person has its own BCI. We used like two types of epochs representations with EG epochs, and then we use machine learning so we train the machine learning classifier to predict the correctness of a decision from the brain signals of each user. We also integrate like behavioral signals here. And that's why before I was talking about hybrid BCIs. Collaborative BCIs could also be hybrid in a sense that their output does not depend only on EEG or neural data, but could also depend on other physiological or behavioral data. So here we really combine neural features with response time to build this probability of correct decision on a trial-by-trial basis. The cool thing of this framework is that you don't really need having people perform the same task simultaneously. But what you could do is collect data from multiple people, not at the same time, but just performing the same experiment, and then combine this data offline to study what would be the performance of groups of different sizes. So you combine these 10 people, for example, in all possible groups of size 4, for example, and then you can compute the average decision error of each group, and then average again across groups of size 4. So I validated this with a number of different experiments over the years, and today I want to present you a particular example in face recognition, which is a very actual task and critical task in many domains. So in this face recognition task, we asked participants to focus on a particular target person, and then we presented them a picture of an indoor environment taken from a security camera for 300 milliseconds, and then asked them to decide whether that particular target person was present or not in the image. And as you can see, like, it's a quite difficult and challenging task because you don't have much time to really scan the whole scene, but you just have to work with whatever you're perceived. And that's what kind of triggered the fact that you are not always confident in this type of decisions because you don't have enough evidence to really back your decisions here. So then we studied the group performance here. We collected data from 10 people, and then we studied the groups of sizes from 2 to 10, and all possible groups were studied. And we started by making group decisions just by standard majority. This is our baseline. So what would happen if we just have multiple people in this task and we integrate their decision without any BCI? As you can see here on the right, on the y-axis you have the accuracy of groups, and on the x-axis you have the number of people in the group. The more people we add in the group, and the more accurate they are. When we use the BCI to estimate the confidence and then weigh individual decisions based on this confidence, the group decisions become significantly better than the decision made by traditional groups. In other words, we are really improving the performance of groups here with respect to the performance of non-BCI groups. We are not comparing groups of BCI users with individual. We are comparing BCI groups versus normal groups here. And as you can see, I want to particularly stress the fact that the performance of people with 3 humans in the team is more or less the same as the performance of 2 people in the team assisted by the BCI. So we are really saving manpower here. Now, as you may wonder here is like, why do you do face recognition? Nowadays there is like a lot of artificial intelligence systems that do face recognition in an autonomous way. So we tested this. Why do we need to have groups made of only humans? We could also pair collaborative BCIs with autonomous agents performing the same task, the same face recognition task, in which the deep learning, the deep neural network in this case, is able to scan the image, make a decision, an autonomous decision, and also estimate its own confidence there. So then, starting from this picture, we can actually see that the performance of the artificial agent here was way better than the performance of humans. We know machines are very good in face recognition in controlled environments. But then we wonder whether if we integrate humans and machine, we could actually beat or not the performance of the machine alone. So if we integrate humans and machines without any BCI, we can't really improve over machines. The more humans we add, the more the suboptimal performance of humans really drag the performance of the group down. And that's why you see that the green line here that never reaches the performance of the residual neural network. But the interesting part instead is, what if we put all together? We give humans a BCI that is able to establish its own confidence, the confidence of the human from the brain signals, and we also have a residual neural network that self-assesses its own confidence. And this is where we can actually see that groups of humans and machines, together with BCIs, are really better than the sum of their parts, so the humans alone or ResNet alone. So I hope with this I convinced you that collaborative BCIs, which fuse brain signals from multiple people, are very promising tools in a number of domains, including enhancing human capabilities, for example, in group decision making. And they could be further developed to also integrate artificial agents there and make these kind of cyborgs in which we have both BCI technologies and artificial agents there to really improve our capabilities. But the importance of unified terminology here is critical, because we want to understand where we are developing and in which domains we should use collaborative BCIs, and how to discriminate between different types of BCIs in a collaborative or a single user manner. So with that, I would like to thank you for the attention. So here are my contact information in case you have any follow-up question, but I will also be around to answer questions here in the conference. And if you have any current study or future study in this area, we are currently accepting submissions for a research topic on frontiers in neuroscience called Neurotechnologies for Human Augmentation, with a particular emphasis on BCI. I would like to thank my collaborators in this research and the organizers of this workshop, of course, for inviting me and for putting all of this workshop together. Thank you.